Okay, and welcome everyone to today's ASBAS Australian Small Business Advisory Services webinar. What we'll be working through today is the 4 key components to building trusted relationships. And as we know in the business world, there's a major aspect in relation to building trust. You may have heard people talk about the know, like, and trust scenario. Today, we'll be dealing fundamentally 100% with the trust equation, what I call the trust equation. How do we build trust and how do we build sustainable and lasting trust? Of course, this is part of the Australian Small Business Services Advisory Services Program, which is a federally funded initiative designed to help small businesses, especially during the COVID period. So fundamentally focused around digital aspects. And then obviously since the introduction of COVID into the world, has really focused on business planning and business resilience, hence the reason why people like myself have been asked to join the program. So the program is actually administered from Business Station in WA, an organisation called Business Station, and the partner here in Queensland is the Regional Development Australia, RDA Brisbane. So a little bit about me. I'm the advisor. I'm based in Redland City here in the Brisbane or Southeast Queensland. I came out of a 30-year retail leadership background. And today you'll be hearing a little bit about that background as we dive into the trust equation. I'm a leadership and a business, what I would call a business skills development coach. So I have a business called Think and Grow Business. The website is sitting there on the screen in front of you right now, and more than happy to receive phone calls or emails if you believe that what I can offer will help and support your business. What we'll be walking through today is trust. And trust is such a small word, but it has a major impact on people. And it gets bandied around a lot. And one of the things that that I know about trust, and that we all know about trust fundamentally, is we know it when we see it, but we also feel it when it's not there. And it has a clear business need. We enjoy doing business with people that we trust, but it's more than enjoyment. We do better business with people we trust. And once again, I'll be sharing some stories in relation to that. There is an economic model for trust, and this sometimes gets missed in the discussions about trust. As I mentioned, there's the know, like, and trust scenario, which tends to, in many ways, simplify it a little bit too much. But there is an economic model for trust, and I'll share that with you today. And it isn't just about feeling good about ourselves or our leadership or our business. It really does have an economic and a business impact. So today's webinar, I'll talk a little bit about success stories. I'll share what I know to be the economic model. We'll dive into the 4 key components of building trust, and we'll be then finalizing with where do we start and providing a bit of a summary around the concept of trust. Now, the first thing that we're going to talk about is, of course, success stories. And one of the biggest success stories in Australian recent history is Bunnings Warehouse. And I had the pleasure of working in a leadership role and a developing leaders role within that organisation for 12 years. And one of the really important things that Bunnings had was a very clear definition about who they were, a very clear strategy, and a very clear leadership model. So what do I know about Bunnings that helps them become the success story that they are? Now, this is publicly available information. It used to be on their website, this particular graph. So I'm not sharing any company secrets. But this is almost unheard of in Australian corporate history. You can see back here in 1994, 95, when they opened their first warehouse, and their first warehouse was in Sunshine, Victoria. And over the period of time from 95 right through to 2015, you can see a very clear trend line of increasing sales and, importantly, increasing EBIT. So, especially in the retail world, and EBIT is earnings before interest and tax, of course. The interesting thing here is, especially within the retail world, and we see this continually in the media, being played out in the media, we see companies diving from having dives in profit or decreases in sales. And as you can see, the Bunnings model fundamentally has seen unprecedented growth over that 20-year period. We often talk about the business cycle in any sort of business where we go through a startup into a growth stage, we level out at maturity, and then usually what the model indicates is that after we've had a period of maturity, often the business will go into decline. Now, of course, in today's world, we talk about second stage growth and third stage growth, but it was almost, it's almost the exception more so than the norm that people continue to grow a business once they've hit that level of maturity. So we know Bunnings for sausage chisels. We know Bunnings for as being a hardware store. We've got the vernacular now within the Australian language of beach, Bunnings and barbecue. They are some of the favourite weekend activities. But there's a real consistency in what they deliver within their organisation, and it's got a clear outcome from a financial aspect. So you can see 20 years of growth on the profit on the bottom line, and also what we would call 20 years of growth on the top line. And of course, along the way, they've had some strategic acquisitions within that particular business model, but every year they are plotting for growth. And what makes them a bit different? And this is the key drivers within the Bunnings business. First up, they've got a vision. Of course, a lot of people have a vision, but the vision you see there is the Bunnings vision. We're building the best, our team makes it happen. So it's really, really simple, and it equates back to everybody within the organization. Everyone can live that vision because it's about them. They had a strategy, they continue to have a strategy, and it's based around three strategic pillars: lowest price, widest range, and best service. And once again, we talk about in the retail world, that when they first came out with this particular strategy, people would say, you can't have them all. If you're going to say best service, you can't have the lowest possible price. If you're going to have widest range, you can't have the best service. So there's people that would indicate or would believe that you can't have them both. You can't have all three. But that has fundamentally been the pillar behind the strategy around what that looks like and continues to look like within the Bunnings process. Importantly, what they've got is a leadership model. And this is where a lot of businesses sort of miss the boat, for want of another word. They've got a leadership model of how they work and operate within their business. And that once again, they look at four key planks within that leadership model. And one of those key planks is the concept of building trust. So the concept of building trust is a fundamental leadership plank within an organization that has become an Australian icon and that just continues to go and just continues to grow. So one of the really interesting things is that leadership model, and I still remember it very clearly. John Gillam was the managing director and CEO of Bunnings during my final couple of years with Bunnings. I left Bunnings in 2012. And John would talk about the leadership model in such a way that he said, to me, it's more than a leadership model. It is our business model. So everything he delivered or looked at from a strategic point of view, he would look at in the framework of that particular leadership model. As I said, 4 key pillars of the leadership model. One of those pillars was the concept of building trust. So every business decision being made within an organization that is obviously a success has a component of how do we build trust with this particular aspect. So that's a success story where trust has really built a fantastic and an amazing business. But we've also got some beliefs and some perceptions around trust that we just want to address right now. So first up, we get a bit of a gut or an intuition about who we can trust and who we can't trust. That's our instinct. That sort of sits within us. But wherever that comes from, it's built within. We also have the concept that some people will cross their arms and say, you've got to earn trust. And sometimes when you're working with people, you will also see the concept that we get blind trust or that we trust too easily. So, and we've also, it's almost like we've got 2 scales there. You've got to earn trust and then I'm going to trust you anyway. And sometimes that, either way, sometimes that's going to be a detriment to us. But one of the things I know about trust is that everything that's great in your life, your career, or your business has been built on the foundation of trust. So everything that's great in your life, in your career, or in your business has been built on the foundation of trust. So it's really critically important that we understand what this small word actually means in our business endeavors. Because if you want to build a career or a business that's successful, people have to trust you and you have to trust in what it is that we're doing. Stephen Covey Jr. wrote a book, and the book's called The Speed of Trust. And it's one of the best books that is out there in relation to how do we build trust. But when we talk about the advantage of trust, we've got some pretty important people there that, Edward Marshall, speed happens when people truly trust each other. Jack Welch, if you're not fast, you're dead. So once again, we're talking about speed, the equivalence of speed when we trust people. And then Jack saying, well, if you're not fast, you're dead. And that's so true in the world of today. And Tom Peters, once again, another leadership expert, talks about technique and technology are important, but adding trust is the issue of the decade. And it's probably the issue of this decade and every decade as we continue to move forward. So when we trust people, we're likely to do things quicker and things happen quicker. So one of the organizations that I'm currently working with now, we've built up the trust equation so that now whenever they need something or they want to do something in relation to how I work with them, they just ask now, instead of me having to provide a price, provide a quote, go through a proposal process, they just say, this is what we're looking at. We're booking it in for this day. Let's do it. So the trust is there and it removes that component of having to do pricing or quotes or proposals because they know that what they get has got enormous value. And in another example, and this comes from the book, Speed of Trust, and it's from Stephen Covey Jr. And this is really, really interesting because this is really high level and it's incredibly big and scary numbers. But you may know the person here in the slide is a gentleman called Warren Buffett. And Warren's one of the best, most trusted, influential, and richest business people, business leaders in the world. And within the book, Stephen Covey talks about the 2004 acquisition of McLean Distribution by Berkshire Hathaway. Now, McLean Distribution were previously with Walmart. So that was a division of Walmart. It was a acquisition from Walmart. And in the terms of the organizations, it was considered, it was not a small purchase. McLean Distribution was a $23 billion company, right? McLean Distribution, $23 billion company. Now, an acquisition of that size would usually take months, and in a very detailed analogy, would cost heaps, right? It would just be millions of dollars of due diligence and making sure that the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. Now, so typically a merger of this size, 6 months or longer, and millions of dollars. Walmart and Berkshire Hathaway operated in an environment of high trust, and they were able to do this deal, right? And this is incredible. They were able to do this deal in a single 2-hour meeting. The whole acquisition was completed within a month. And by doing so, they saved millions. They saved millions. Now, I'm not sharing that so that you turn around and say, well, I'm not going to do due diligence anymore. It was the organizational trust between the two entities that enabled this to happen. And it's a vivid example of what can happen when we operate in that world of high trust. Let's face it, Warren Buffett is not a dumb man. He's the richest business, one of the richest business people in the world for reasons. And for him to be able to work through and do this acquisition from Walmart in that particular time would indicate the level of trust that they have. Now, the interesting thing is that when you look at the 2004 annual report from Berkshire Hathaway, they actually made mention of the acquisition. And part of the commentary was we expected everything to be as Walmart had said it would be, and it was. So operating in a high levels or high expectations of trust, and ultimately it was. That trust was not eroded. So it's a very, once again, just an incredible case study when it comes to any size business thinking about the concept of trust. And as I've sort of said before, you feel it when you don't have it. You know it when you see it, and you feel it when you don't. So here's some examples of the people that I've worked with in my time. Some people get burned, so they're never going to trust again. My boss micromanages me and everyone else. He treats us like we can't be trusted. I have to walk on eggshells with my major client. It always feels like I'm giving in, but I can't afford to lose them. So these are all aspects of trust where we don't necessarily have that level or that deep level of trust. And when we don't have it, we monitor relationships with checklists, clauses, compliancy, complexity, and all of that adds cost, and it slows and reduces our capacity to serve. So once again, just a really interesting scenario. One of the interesting things that that I see when we talk about trust is that some people will suddenly just start trusting everything. It's not a matter of blind trust. It's about there is a process on how we understand and work with trust, and that's what we'll be working through today. Once again, the economic model, when trust is high, we see high speed and we see lower cost. When trust is low, we see decreased speed and we see increased cost. So, and we see this with bureaucracy all the time. We've got complexity where laws, regulations, and all of that, and legislation to a large degree are all geared towards the things that aren't working. So the 3% of things that aren't working, so we need to put a system and a process in to make sure that we cover that. And that complexity brings costs. It slows everything down. We understand that. So when we work in an area of high trust, we have high speed and low cost. And that's the economic model that we get right. If we get it right, we'll actually improve and increase our business growth. This is Stephen Covey's formula. It's certainly not mine. Usually what you see is good strategy, good execution. So the S stands for strategy, the E stands for execution. Good strategy, good execution equals good results, right? But when we place trust in the equation, it looks like good strategy, good execution, multiplied by high trust creates better results. So this is why it's really important for us to understand, what does trust look like, and is there a formula that I can bring trust more into my business to deliver and develop what I should be doing as part of my business growth strategy. What are the 4 components? Let's look at them. The first component is integrity. We work through intent. We've got capabilities, and we've got results. So this is once again from the, Stephen Covey's book, and this is what he would call the main components of self-trust. And then from self-trust, we breed relationship and network trust. But we've got to have self-trust before we move into the world of network or relationship trust. So when we talk about integrity, integrity is about, are you in alignment? Are you congruent? Are your words matching your actions? When we talk about intent, I'm going to dive into these in more detail. So this is just like a summary slide of what we're now going to be working through. Intent talks about, what's our agenda? What's your agenda in relation to this? So those 2 components are really internal. So am I congruent in what I'm saying? Am I in alignment with what I'm saying? And then what's my intent? So what's my agenda in this situation? Do I have an agenda? Am I aware of my agenda? Now, the last 2, the capabilities and results, are what people see. So do I have the skills necessary to be relevant in the situation or what the person is looking for? And then fundamentally, what's my results in this particular area? So what's my track record? Because they are some of the capabilities that we will be able to build trust. So when people are meeting you for the first time, they're looking at those first 2 areas. Absolutely. Are you in alignment with who you say you are? And am I aware of any particular agenda? Is your agenda pure? Is it about a case of serving me as a client potentially? And then the other 2 areas are those things that they're going to be looking for. The capabilities. Are you the relevant? Are you the right person? Are you relevant in this particular situation? And then they're going to be looking for some verification of, okay, have they done this before, and what's their track record? So that concept of success breeding success is really, really important. So building trust, relationship trust can only happen after we deliver that concept of self-trust. So we build those 4 components before we can expect to gain trust within the network. You cannot build trust in a network if you are seen to be someone that you can't be trusted. So it's a really simple formula when you look at it like that. It starts with us. So I've worked with many leaders, and they look for the magic pill when it comes to, how do I build trust? And the only place to start is within ourselves. So it's very hard to build trust if you can't be trusted. So that it's got to start in that world. I need to be trustworthy if people are going to trust me. So to build trust, the only place to start is to be trustworthy. It sounds simple, but is it? So as we work through the first 2 components, they're aligned to ourselves. They are aligned to us. And the reality is that you will struggle to build trust if you cannot be trusted. And ultimately, what we're breeding is suspicion and mistrust, or reliance on clauses and legal options for people to actually get what they're paying for. So really interesting and really important to note that. So the first place to start is if I want to be trusted, I need to be trustworthy. So I need to have myself in alignment. I need to understand exactly who I am. So let's look at the first two components, right? So first up, let's talk about integrity. So integrity is driven by behaviors and values. Integrity is what people see. You can tell them as much as you want that you've got integrity, but they're not going to believe it until you show them. So this is your actions are the key, and your actions must align with your words. So as a negative example, environmental companies that a company building their name on environmental concerns, but then get caught dumping waste into a pristine stream, you can just imagine the uproar. You could just imagine the loss of trust, the integrity that that company would actually suddenly be facing. But it's just as great when we say we're going to do something and that we don't. So are you congruent? Are you in alignment? Does your behavior validate the gut instinct that you want people to have about you? Now, I've worked with so many people who really fundamentally, I just haven't been able to trust to the depth that I would have loved to. And that's driven from that gut instinct. And that gut instinct is being driven by what I'm seeing. And we work with them, and you may have clients that you work with that are in a very similar sort of a process. You're not quite sure how deep the trust is. And we and we work with them, but we're walking on eggshells in relation to them. And that makes it really, really challenging in many ways, because in some ways we're just waiting for the blow up. We're just waiting for the misalignment to become visual. So the initial behavior will validate our gut instinct. And so are you congruent? Do you walk the talk? Do you say, if you say that you're a person of character, is that being clearly indicated in how you behave and how you respond and how you react and act with others? Are your values clear to you is probably a really, really good starting place. So do I have values? Am I open to learning new truths about yourself and your values? Do I keep commitments? So that's about that integrity piece, and that's a really challenging area for some people to dive into, because there could be some new truths that they suddenly realize about themselves that they're not quite comfortable with, that they do need to start to shift that. But it's really the starting point in the concept of building trust. The second part of self-trust is about, what is my agenda here? What is my agenda? And agenda is huge. And once again, this is about people. Sometimes I've worked with people that their agenda is just the wrong agenda, and it's way out there, and it's all about themselves potentially. But when it comes to the business world, are you meeting people just to get the next sale? Is that part of the agenda that you're showing to people? So, and we end up with a bit of a tax here, So do I discount others' intent due to suspicion? So someone may have contacted you in the past to offer you a service or something that they believe can add value to your business. You're not quite sure of their agenda, whether they're genuinely here to help you or whether you're just another piece in the sales pipeline. So we will often discount others if we don't feel the agenda is there, but that's also happening when we're working with others. Am I paying a tax because others are questioning my intent? And when we say that, is there cost or is there a discount on my services that I've got to provide because people just aren't sure of my agenda or my intent? So once again, one of those, we talk about business negotiation being an art of thrust and counter thrust and, It can, we get really scared about leaving money on the table. And I guess from a business world, that's something that's a reality we'll face. But it really is about what's my intent, what's my agenda, and more importantly, what's my winning point and what is their winning point. So when we're talking with people or when we're negotiating to take on services, what's my agenda here? Is it to add more money into my kitty, or is it actually to solve a problem for a customer? So it really does come about understanding that point within ourselves and then making sure that our intent and our agenda is really in the right place. We talk about capabilities. So this is the stuff that people are going to see most clearly. What capabilities do I have that increases and improves credibility and helps inspire that trust and confidence? What experience do I have in developing these capabilities and developing confidence in myself? Am I relevant in the business world of today? Or even more importantly, am I the right person to be solving this particular problem for this organization? Am I relevant in that? And then, understanding that people who are growing and continue to grow will always be developing their capabilities. So what is my attitude in developing myself to remain relevant? One of the questions I asked myself this year, and I'm undertaking some new formal training in relation to it, is how do I continue to maintain my relevance within the leadership world? And it's a really interesting question that when you get down to it, you really need to deep dive and start working through where is the new research, where is the new academia that's going to help me remain relevant within my business, within that industry. Because if we're not remaining relevant, we're going backwards. And then from a results perspective, of course, our results are important. So what is my track record? What are my current results? How good am I in identifying desired results and executing them to the highest level? So people will look towards that concept of what have you done? Show me some examples. We see it in the reviews, we see it in testimonials. People more and more are relying on peer reviews to help make business decisions, and it helps build trust. Not saying you go out and get millions of reviews, because that can also breed a little bit of the mistrust if you've got too many 5-star reviews, So once again, we're talking about a balancing act. So what is my track record? What are my current results? So they're the 4 components, and hopefully you've taken a little bit away from what I've just talked through in depth that you can start thinking about within your business. Um, when we look back on them, how's my integrity? What's my intent? Do I have capabilities to be doing when you're meeting new people and wanting to build trust? And then what are my results? Now, it's really interesting to continue to think about who you are is who you attract. And once again, this has got a real resemblance in relation to building trust, because ultimately you won't attract the quality of people, the quality of leads, the quality of customers that you potentially want within your business if you aren't authentically someone that they will trust, or that you necessarily see those qualities in yourself. So effective leaders are always looking out for good people to continue to build them and help build themselves. Do you know who you are looking for, and what qualities will they have? Because you've probably heard the term the inner circle before. So why build a trusted inner circle? And what you're looking for here is that you really want to challenge yourself in respect of how do I continue to build trust so I can surround myself with the people that I actually need within my life? So a couple of quotes there on the screen that will help you understand that. You are the average of 5 people that you spend the most time with. John Maxwell always says, if you're the smartest person in the room, you are in the wrong room. And there's a there's something really deep within that. So if you want to build trust and continue to grow, and you want to do that in a way, you need to get in the right room with the right people and build those trusts through the 4 components that we talked about. Okay. So when you're looking at who is going to be part of your inner circle and how do you build trust within this, obviously the people that you want around you and the people that you want to be around um, are people that can add some influence into your life. They're going to have a complementary gift or a skill that will help you. It helps you from a strategic positioning. You're going to be looking to add value, and you want to have a positive impact on other, what you would call your inner circle members. So when you're ticking those boxes, you are suddenly starting to build that trust within the relationship or the inner circles that you need to be able to build your business. So once again, when we talk about who are you going to be bringing into your organization, from a team member perspective, um, we need to have a bit of a picture about what they look like, don't they? So that you can actually attract the people within your to join your organization that you actually want within your organization. So people, if you want to attract successful, courageous, honest people who are transparent, where do you find them and how do you build trust? And the funny thing is, if you want to attract someone, you need to have those characteristics. So if you want successful, courageous, honest, and transparent people, guess what? It's going to help if you are exactly those things: successful, courageous, honest. And once again, we just go into that whole concept that who you are is going to constrain, or who you are will either constrain you or it will you'll embrace growth. So if you are the smartest person in the room, you are in the wrong room, but it's a concept of growing your own capability to grow your capacity. And all of this will help you continue to build trust. So it's not just about, we are in a continual process of building trust within everything that we do, and unfortunately we may have a trust bucket or we have a trust equation with some people, and sometimes we'll diminish that equation because of something that we've done or something that's occurred or something that's gone on or something that's happened. The more trust we've actually built with someone, the more likely they're going to forgive the odd occasional mistake until it gets too much of a drain. So we don't want to see the trust bucket leaking in capacities. So once again, a trusted inner circle relationship is fantastic for your business. And part of that whole concept is about who you are, is how you get there. You're not going to start with the right people around you from a trust building scenario, inner circle scenario. But you've got to start somewhere. So where you start is where you currently are. And then as you grow, the strength of the people around you will continue to grow. So once again, this is a little bit about that relationship or the network trust that I spoke to, but we've really got to nail off the 4 components of self-trust before we can really start to build an effective relationship or a network trust. Now, it comes back to a couple of things, right? It really comes back to, how much do we have in the trust bucket? Do we want to accept the tax of, and when we talk about that tax, it's about the lower speed and the higher cost. Do we want to accept that as part of our business operation? Or do we really want to work or embrace the dividend that we can have, that the dividend of high trust, that increased speed, the lower cost? Once again, trust is the foundation of everything that's great in your life. And I would challenge you to reflect back on everything that you find fantastic in your life, and you will find that has been built on the foundation of trust. So where do we need to start building? Where do we? It starts with each and every one of us to analyze, review, reflect where we currently are, and the reality that we see, and hopefully I was able to share that with some of the examples that I provided earlier. The businesses that can really unlock the trust equation reap the benefits from their customers, their teams, and their suppliers. And ultimately, it starts with us. It starts with each and every one of us to be doing that review and the reflection. So, review your current business relationships. Have a look at what's going on there. Are there relationships where maybe the trust bucket isn't as full as what it could be? Maybe there's some clients that you have that you walk on eggshells with. Maybe there's some things wrong there that that you need to address. Remember, it's starting with you. It's not necessarily pointing a finger or judging other people. It starts with you. How's my integrity? What's my intent? Do I have the capability? And then ultimately, what's my track record in relation to this? Because in a world that we have today, like pace of technology, of just the technological change over the last 10 years has been huge. Um, we're living in this world where pace is just so critical. And it's so critical to the way people have emotions. I mean, you hold someone up for 3 seconds on the road, or if a traffic light's a little bit longer than what it is, that can potentially ruin some people's day. We're living in a world where trust for our political leaders is diminishing or being disrespected, where more people are working or on what I would call the stress precipice. They're walking this tightrope of pressure where people are jaded by marketing, marketing messages, and we're just bombarded with them. And we lose them. I mean, really relevant marketing messages nowadays are just being lost in the noise. And the media are just, we talk about agenda. It would appear that every media organization has their own agenda. So we're living in a world where trust is difficult, where the environment is the environment in which we're living is actually making trusted relationships even harder. And that's why it's really important to understand that it starts with us. This won't happen overnight. It won't happen with a hidden agenda, but it does. Business success will to be delivered when we start operating in those areas of high trust. So if you can unlock the trust equation within your business, imagine the advantage. Imagine the potential advantage that will bring to you and your business. So how do I get started? Okay. The key here is that it's important to get started more so than anything else. This isn't a formulatic process per se. This isn't here are the 4 steps to take to start building trust. I get asked that all the time by leaders. I made mention of that. The first step is you've got to be trustworthy. That's got to be the first step in any aspect of building trust. You have to be trustworthy. And it's self-reflection around those 4 components. It really is the self reflection. Each and every time you meet someone, each and every time you're starting a new relationship, each and every time you are asked to propose to other clients, or that people are building or starting a business relationship with you, the questions that are always going to be there for you to be sure that if you can answer them in the positive and to be able to work through each and every one of them, you are going to start to build a relationship of deep trust every time, every time. And review current relationships. If you're suddenly saying, oh, this person's being a little bit aloof, you go back and you look at the 4 questions. Where has that aloofness come from? And those 4 questions: are you congruent? What's your agenda? Am I relevant in the situation? Am I the right person to be doing it? One of the things that is really important to me is that if I say I'm going to do something for a client, whether it's a development of a performance management system, for example, within an organization, or I'm going to coach leaders to be greater awareness of how they can develop people underneath them and empower them, I commit to doing that. That's part of the DNA. But often, if I'm not the right person, but I know someone that's going to be better, I am going to recommend that other person, even though fundamentally that means that I'm going to miss out on that particular service or revenue coming back into my business. The reality is it's the right thing to do. In my eyes, in those particular situations. So if I've got an expert that's going to do a better job, I'm probably going to be speaking with that expert to make sure that they've got capacity to do that, seeing if there's an opportunity maybe for me to be involved, but ultimately I will be recommending that other person to be doing the job if they are the better person to be doing the job. Integrity, intent, capabilities, and results. They are all fundamentally the 4 key components in what you are looking for when you're building trust in any sort of a business relationship. And once again, this is the concept of self-trust from the book by Stephen Covey Jr. called The Speed of Trust. And it's only once that we can deliver those on a consistent basis and we know where we are we really going to then start to build the concepts of network and relationship trust. So what happens next? You will get an email from both myself and from Business Station or the ASBAS providers in relation to the replay for this particular webinar will be made available. You will receive an email from Business Station in relation to feedback. So please, if you've taken value away from this and given you some thoughts in relation to how it can help your business, please share that in the feedback. If you want to dive in a little bit deeper, there's the opportunity to book a low-cost one-on-one ASBAS consultation with myself, and you can do that by going to businessstation.com.au/advisor /Tony-Curl. If there was anything that I can do in any other respect, of course, you've got my details there. Tony@tagb.com.au is probably the best way to connect, although you can book in straight from my homepage at thinkandgrowbusiness.com.au. That concludes our presentation for today. I do hope that you've taken some real value from that. It's given you some insight, some thought processes on how you can continue to build trusted business relationships and grow your business. Thank you for attending.